COVID-19 report. I'm Amy Goodman. Coronavirus cases are surging across the United States, the epicenter of the pandemic, with one person dying of COVID-19 every 47 seconds. Nearly 16,700 coronavirus deaths have been recorded in the United States, with the number of confirmed cases approaching 500,000, more than Italy, Spain, and France combined. The true rate of infections is far, far higher due to a critical lack of testing. The U.S. Labor Department said Thursday over 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits over the past week as the pace and scale of U.S. job losses is set to rival the Great Depression. Officially, 17 million Americans, or more than 10% of the U.S. workforce, are currently out of a job, though that statistic does not count immigrant workers or millions more who've tried and failed to file unemployment claims while state labor departments buckle under a tsunami of paperwork. Around the United States, food pantries are reporting record demand, even as donations have fallen precipitously. One pop-up pantry in Van Nuys neighborhood of Los Angeles Thursday drew a mile-long line of cars. On Capitol Hill, senators failed to agree Thursday on a new round of coronavirus relief. Democrats objected to a Republican effort to increase funding for a small business loan program by $250 billion. They're instead demanding a more expansive stimulus bill with federal aid for hospitals and more assistance for state and local governments. Here in New York, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases has topped 160,000, with a record 799 deaths reported in just 24 hours, though that does not include scores of people, perhaps hundreds, who died in their homes over the same period. The pace of deaths in New York now exceeds any country in the world except the United States as a whole. On Hart Island in the Bronx, workers in hazmat suits are burying the bodies of dozens of unclaimed coronavirus victims in mass graves each day. The New York Daily News reports nurses at least 3 New York City hospitals who've tested positive for coronavirus are being asked to work while sick. At the White House, top coronavirus task force scientist Dr. Anthony Fauci said there are signs the pace of new infections in New York is falling as social distancing measures begin to bear fruit.
I think yesterday was something like 200 new hospitalizations, and it's been as high as 1,400 at any given time. So that is going in the right direction. I say that, and I always remind myself when I say that, that means that what we are doing is working, and therefore we need to continue to do it.
President Trump continued to ignore the urgent pleas of public health officials Thursday as he once again called on the U.S. to reopen much of its economy in early May. Trump admitted coronavirus testing would not be widely available by then, but insisted his plan wouldn't risk a second wave of coronavirus infections and deaths. Trump was questioned by CNN correspondent Jim Acosta.
The administration discussed the possibility of reopening the country when the administration does not have an adequate nationwide testing system for this virus. Don't you need a nationwide testing system for the virus before you reopen?
We have a great testing system. We have the best, right now, the best testing system in the world.
Fuck you, geriatric clam brat.
The United States have been tested for the coronavirus, just a fraction of 1% of the population. After National Public Radio reported the Trump administration was preparing to end federal support for coronavirus testing sites around the U.S. today, that's Friday, the Department of Health and Human Services reversed course and said it will continue to fund 41 community testing sites around the United States. In Riverside, California, first responders evacuated a nursing home Wednesday after most staff members failed to show up for 2 consecutive days. More than a third of the facility's 90 residents tested positive for COVID-19. In a hopeful sign, California Governor Gavin Newsom said Thursday the number of coronavirus patients requiring intensive care fell for the first time in California since the start of the pandemic. In Kansas, Democratic Governor Laura Kelly is suing Republican lawmakers to stop them from overturning her executive order limiting the size of church gatherings ahead of Easter Sunday services. In Minnesota, Attorney General Keith Ellison is pressing charges against a landlord who violated a state order barring evictions during the pandemic. In Florida, billions of dollars worth of tomatoes, squash, and other crops are rotting in fields as supply chains that normally provide the food service industry with fresh produce have broken down. On Thursday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis claimed the coronavirus doesn't seem to threaten children and falsely stated that nobody under the age of 25 has died of COVID-19 in the United States. In Chicago, a second prisoner at the Cook County Jail has died of COVID-19. Nearly 300 prisoners and more than 100 staff at the jail have tested positive. On Thursday, prisoners posted signs in the windows of their cells reading, "Help, no supply," and "We're dying." In Manhattan, the Cathedral of St. John the Divine has canceled plans to become a temporary field hospital for COVID-19 patients. Leaders of the church's progressive congregation had a partnership with the field hospital's operator, the Christian fundamentalist group Samaritan's Purse. In a statement, the cathedral wrote, quote, "The beliefs and ideologies of Samaritan's Purse and the cathedral are not the same, and while we were willing to welcome them into our home and our community, the cathedral would not waver on our outspoken support for the rights of all, including our LGBTQ family," the cathedral statement read. According to a cathedral source, the cathedral planned to hang a pride flag on the front of the cathedral, which was unacceptable to Samaritan's Purse.
Fuck Samaritan's
Earlier
Purse.
this week, New York City activist Reverend Billy was tackled and arrested by New York police after he planted a rainbow flag near the Samaritan Purse tents in Central Park outside Mount Sinai Hospital.
Hallelujah.
At the Vatican, Pope Francis is set to deliver Good Friday Easter services by video stream from a nearly empty St. Peter's Basilica. Holy Thursday services did not include a ritual washing of the feet in order to prevent community spread of the coronavirus. More than 18,000 Italians have died of COVID-19 in less than 2 months, though Italian mayors say the true toll is likely far higher, with many of the dead still uncounted. In France, authorities have ordered nursing homes to report deaths of confirmed or suspected coronavirus patients. Officially, more than 12,000 have died of COVID-19 across France, but that number is expected to jump by over 40% once deaths outside the hospitals are counted. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has reportedly been moved out of intensive care but remains hospitalized with COVID-19. Nearly 8,000 Britons have died from the coronavirus. In Spain, lawmakers voting remotely have extended a national state of emergency to April 26th. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez told a nearly empty parliament he's convinced social distancing measures will need to be extended even further into the month of May. In Portugal, European Union finance ministers agreed Thursday to a rescue package worth over €500 billion, or about $590 billion. In Kazakhstan, a NASA astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts blasted off on a Soyuz rocket Thursday after an extended quarantine to prevent the coronavirus from spreading to the International Space Station. Chinese authorities have ordered a lockdown of an eastern border city home to 100,000 people after discovering a cluster of COVID-19 cases they blame on travelers recently returned from Russia. The lockdown comes as strict social distancing